Thank you. And welcome everybody to the Shropshire County Pensions Fund Board meeting. Because we've got some new members, a new member leaving, I thought we'd do some introductions first of all. I'm Dave Wright. I'm chairing today's meeting. I was volunteered back in May or sometime like that to be chair. Go around the room.
Helen Woodbine, I'm an employer representative on the board.
I'm John Hall, I'm member representative.
Dulson, committee officer. Madeline Murphy, employee representative. Debbie Sharp, pensions administration manager.
And Pete Johnson, pension investment and responsible investment manager.
You can only get yours on your
I know, it's a long title.
But thank you for that. It's getting longer, isn't it?
Feels like
To do a bit of housekeeping, there's no fire alerts today as I understand it, so if the fire alarm does go, we go to the evacuation areas, we'll follow the officers out. They'll know where they are. We'll go to item 1 of the agenda, which is the apologies, please.
We've received an apology from Ms. Geary.
Thank you. We've also got an apology from Justin because Justin's on the LGPS central meeting this morning. Obviously, you can fit this time. Declarations of conflict of interest. Members are reminded that they should declare any interests which may lead to conflicts of interest in the subject areas or any specific agenda item of the meeting. Are there any conflicts noted? We can note them afterwards if you come up to one of the items and you do find it. Okay, thank you. Item 2 finished. Item number 3 is the minutes of the previous meeting. First of all, can I confirm, please, that you've all received those minutes? Confirm. Can we confirm that they are a true record of that meeting? I'll give you a couple of minutes to read them. Yeah, I'll get a couple of slides. I'll give you a minute to read them. But obviously, they're new to some of us. Pages 1 to 6 of the document sent out. Minutes from the 9th of May, the July meeting was cancelled. We wasn't for it. Okay, I'll take any matters arising from those minutes. John, you raised your hand before. Have you got a matter arising? No. Okay, thank you. I've got one on page 2. Oh, sorry. On the front page, on page 1, to start with, we've got Mike Morris shown as present. We've also got apologies from Mike Morris. Can we amend that in the? I think Mike was definitely here. Yeah. On page 2, you might not be able to answer this one. On paragraph 3, the communications and governance, she agreed to the very end of that paragraph. She agreed to arrange for examples to be shared at the next meeting. The next meeting was in July, which was cancelled. So are we going to? Is that covered in the meeting today?
Examples of. Sorry.
Oh, you have to.
Looking at the minutes.
Yeah. Let's look at the minutes on page 2.
It's about emails not being opened.
Yeah. I think it's covered later on in the government's part. Paragraph 4. Presented to the September meeting of the board, 2022-23, will be presented for the September meeting of the board. Should that have been September meeting of the committee? Because I think it was presented to them, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was presented to the September meeting of the committee.
Yeah, and we've got all the committee minutes. So I think that should, at the end, it shouldn't read board, it should read committee. September meeting of the committee. There's one on same page 2 of the minutes on the 9th of May. The paragraph 7, which is the one from the bottom. In order for members to better understand the profile of employers in the fund, they requested a breakdown showing how many active members each employer had. Is that covered in the agenda? Or is that something that we're gonna?
I can make sure that you've got that. Sorry, missed that.
So we'll have that in the meeting in January. Carry forward to the meeting in January. The next meeting was, sorry, I've gone to page 3, paragraph 55. The next meeting was due to be held on Monday, the 23rd of October 23. We're here. And Mike Morris had agreed to attend in place of the chairman. That was a chairman's meeting. Justin, I've just been told by Peter, Justin's going to attend at the bottom of that paragraph. But obviously Mike retired due to ill health. So John's now going to attend by Zoom for that meeting, for the chairman's meeting, which is on the 23rd of October. And obviously the date of the next meeting, there wasn't one on the 7th of July. So I don't quite know what you do with that paragraph, date of the next meeting.
These minutes are what was said in the
Yeah,
meeting.
in May,
so
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so they
Yeah,
have
so
to say
it's
that.
correct at the time, okay.
Yeah.
And that's the only matters arising I've got. No more from the officers, so can we confirm their true meeting yet? Those who were present.
Yes.
Thank you, John. Alan, yeah, all agreed, those who were present. Happy for me to sign off.
Mhm.
We now go to item 4, the public question time. Are there any questions from the public, please?
No public questions were received.
Thank you very much. Item 5, the admin and regulatory updates. I think Debbie's going to give this one for us.
Thank you, Chair. The administration at the moment on the team is heavily focused on ensuring that the policies and procedures are up to date. The business plan, we have had team plans in place for many, many years, but we haven't had a pensions function business plan. And it's one of the things that is being mentioned in the pensions regulator sort of updates, the one code that's possibly coming into place soon, keeps being delayed. So what we've been working on, both I and Pete and Justin have been working on ensuring that we've got a business plan, and at the moment that's coming together quite nicely, and that we're hoping that the first draft of it will go to committee in December, and then we'll bring it to the next pensions board meeting as well. So that's pulling together. What what is in place, what we know we have to deliver, the sort of the bit of the known and the unknown. So certain things that you know are coming, but we don't know dates for yet. And also looking at the resource readiness as to whether the teams are actually ready to deliver what they're going to have to deliver. So the communications, we've given you a little bit of an update there of the update again on My Pensions Online. 51% of active members. So again, we've only got half of our active members that actually do go online and actually look at their benefits. Overall, across the industry, that's not bad, but it's not good enough, we think, because 50% of your members not looking at least at their annual benefit statement. There was nothing to say that they read it, understood it when we used to send them a hard copy, but we are going to do a push once the resource of the staffing is back up to full strength to actually do a drive on getting the online registrations up. We're trying to use the national campaigns. So the pension attention one, we put out some emails and information on the website using people's intranets just to try and ensure that we could get to some of our membership at that same time. But using any opportunities that we can, really. We've given you an update there, what's gone out to the employers across August and September. September mainly was around the pension saving webinar. We had some members join that. The pension saving statements were less this year than they were the previous year. That was mainly down to the government moving when we update our pension value. Nowadays the pension gets increased because of the care benefit rather than the final salary benefit pot. It gets increased each year by inflation, and because inflation last September was 10.1%, they realised it was going to the date our pensions updated on the 1st of April. So that is before the 5th of April, so the end of the tax year. So it was actually going to affect pensions growth this year. Up until now, it hadn't really made a big effect because inflation's been so low for so long. But they moved it now, and we now update the pensions value by inflation on the 6th. So that did have a direct impact, that we did reduce some of the pension saving statement requirements, which is when somebody's benefit is increased more than the current 60,000 allowed in 1 year's growth. We had, I think it was 38 statements this year, whereas we were having sort of in the high 70s last year. So we've run a webinar for members who needed to have information around the tax implications. Mercers have done this for us for the last few years now. They've got a registered financial advisor that can give information and advice, and he also offers one-to-one on information sessions for individuals affected by that growth or worried about if they've got a promotion coming up. So we've done a lot around the pension saving statements and the change in the government increasing the annual growth from 60,000. From 40,000 to 60,000, and they've taken away the lifetime allowance from next year. So we've done a lot of communications around that. Yeah. The autumn in touch is the big communication that goes out to pensioner members. So that's being drafted at the moment. And there's going to be quite a lot of updates in that with Mike leaving, with the McLeod update on it. We're also advertising for Mike's replacement through the In Touch as well. So that's one of the biggest categories of a member rep that we can actually get to. So we will be advertising it on the website, sending it out to employers, but mainly also ensuring that there's a way that people can contact us through the In Touch. We've got the employers meeting due to take place on the 14th of November. That will sadly be after I've gone, but we've got the presentation this year is going to be done by Mercers for the employer. So we're working with Mercers at the moment on the topics to be delivered. And the main one is going to be all around McLeod remedy. which is the equality issue that's ensuring that we've now got to go back and ensure that all members haven't lost out between 2014 and 22 who weren't previously protected by the underpin as the older members were when the regulations got changed back in 2013. So data, I think is the message we will be giving for employers, because that's going to affect McLeod because of what we have to recalculate on benefits. But it will also be affecting going forward dashboards. National dashboards will be coming in 2026, but we've obviously got a lot of work to do before then. So it's just ensuring that employers are keeping up to date with who's trained in their establishment, really, if you've got employees changing, coming to us, and also looking at are the topics we're covering relevant. So looking at probably the employer reps, so Helen and Madeline as well, we may be utilising and sort of saying is, are we hitting the mark? But we'll be covering that at the meeting in November. Disaster recovery, we have actually had our hosted service. All of our database or the pensions administration system is now held by Haywards in their cloud environment, so it's no longer on site here at the council. And Haywards have actually done a disaster recovery to ensure that they can fall back to a different server and get all of our data up should something happen to the server it's hosted on normally. That was successful. So we've had feedback from that, that there wasn't any issues. And there was just one issue around, we had late notice that they were going to do this, so we picked this up with them and ensured that they give us better notice. We were able to support it, and we made sure that the resource was taken from what business we would have usually been doing. But we have just picked up with them that we need more notice, because we have prided ourselves on ensuring that disaster recovery in the past is always been fully tested, and that we do want to know the full assurance that actually should anything happen, we've got that fallback very quickly, and how quickly it can get up and running. There's an update there from the Scheme Advisory Board around their scheme valuation from 2022. So looking at the differences between 2019 and 22 across the whole of the industry and the local government pension scheme there. An update around the gender pensions gap, and that there is a working group. I think there isn't an awful lot that the fund can do in this area. It's more with communicating with people and ensuring that anybody who takes perhaps a gap in their employment, which tends to be more ladies when they're taking maternity absence, we still have less men who do take the option to take some of that maternity absence as unpaid. So it's looking at ensuring that they're understanding how to keep their benefit keep the value up, really, and cover it should they wish to with paying contributions. Employers do this. It's just, I think that's the only area that we can push. There's the Scheme Advisory Board is also got a working group around scheme surpluses, because all of this, most of the scheme across the country now are in the good position of being in surplus, or at least 100% funding. So there's a lot of talk about now as to, should that continue long term or increase, then what do you do with those surpluses? So that's an area just to keep an eye on at the moment. And I've mentioned it a couple of times, but McLeod remedy is now in legislation. The 1st of October has passed. They did just get the legislation up and running. We still are missing certain guidance, though. So there's guidance that we need, statutory guidance under the regulations of how we calculate certain things like transfers and different elements of the pension benefits, and we're still waiting for that. So we're going to have to stockpile a few elements that we can't calculate at the moment. So we're hoping that it's not too long for that guidance. But what we're also doing is working on our software provider has done some updates to the system that allows the system to now calculate the underpin. And we're just bottoming out who that works for and who that doesn't. So we're just about in the next few weeks, we'll turn that on. So at the moment, we're still calculating under the old scheme rules, but we will shortly turn on the calculation for McLeod. What we won't be able to do quickly is, of course, go back and recalculate all of the previous benefits for people who've either left with deferred pension benefits, so those are members who've left and haven't drawn the benefit straight away, or the pensioners, the widows, or any death benefits, transfers, aggregations. All of these have got to be looked at. Very few, and I think I've reported previously, very few people will have an underpin bite, which means their benefit will have to be increased. But we have to do that check across every single benefit that's been calculated for somebody who is a protected member since 2014 to 22. So once we've got the reports working and up and running, we'll actually be able to identify how many records do look like they actually have the underpin means they need recalculating, but that will take a few months to get to that stage. So the team are being trained at the moment. We did have a team training day last week where the whole of the team came together. And one of the issues that was discussed was McLeod. We gave an update to all of the teams to bring them up to date completely. And they also then had an opportunity to workshop through what it actually meant for them in their individual sort of teams around the room. We had the whole of the team included. So investments and accountants came as well. And we covered McLeod. We also covered dashboards. So we'd had an external presenter come in and give a presentation to the whole of the team on what actually the national dashboards is all about. So we've made sure that the knowledge has been brought up to date and that they fully understand the architecture around how the national dashboards are going to be working and what that impact could mean for us as a fund. And it was a really good session. We also covered ill health, I think, as a training session, a CPD session for the staff, but it seemed to go down really well because, of course, the hybrid working, we're not working in the office anymore. So to bring nearly everybody together was really great for the team morale, and people had an opportunity. What came out of that was we did a half a day session, but the next one we're going to go back to the previous way of working where we used to do a whole day. So we would do a day of CPD, or half a day of CPD, and then also do some sort of team bonding, some morale boosting sort of sessions. So early next year, when the new pensions manager takes up position, then hopefully she will work with Pete and Justin. That is a she, sorry, the new pensions manager has been appointed and is public knowledge. We are in the public part of the meeting, and it's Vicky Jenks, who currently works at Warwickshire Council as their pensions manager. But Vicky actually was one of my team members previously before she went and had her promotion over at Warwickshire. So Vicky is Shropshire based. And she's been appointed, so a successful appointment. The rest of the updates there are mini, just the updates to tell you what's going on. New government actuary appointed, a bit around about the money and pension service review into pension scams. We're still ensuring that we keep up to date and we've got everything in place to ensure our teams, our members are not scammed as far as we can possibly help. We do use all of their amber and red flags and ensure that we're bringing anything to the attention that we need to. There's an update on HMRC rules around the second set of legislation changes we need around rectification, all to tied in with McLeod. And then there's a mini update there on auto enrolment, the latest analysis and what's happening with auto enrolment. All of our employers are engaged with auto enrolment and do keep us up to date with when they're hitting their each tranche of enrolment dates. And I'm happy to take any questions from this or from the paper that went to committee.
Members, any questions?
All very comprehensive.
Yeah, surpluses, what's the problem with them?
I think it's some employers are starting to question, can they have the money back even whilst they're still an active employer? What is fair, what needs to be? So it's starting to talk about, because no one's had surpluses for many years. It's looking at it, it's that aspect of fairness and what should happen, what shouldn't happen, and how is it going to be dealt with? Should they continue to grow? And which we would, the whole point is the funds are meant to be 100% funded to pay your liabilities. So if it starts to creep up, how do you rebalance it? So there's looking at that. It hasn't been an area that's been needed for a long time. You may remember that a couple of years ago, the regulations were changed to when an employer ceased, that if they were in surplus, that we now repay a surplus to a closing employer. Prior to that, there was nothing in the regulations. They couldn't have a surplus refunded. So it was introduced there in the regulations. And there's just a lot of questions now and a lot of talk. Well, okay, but what happens if you're not ceasing? What happens to active employers? How will you rebalance it? If it's not just through contribution reductions? Because the actuaries are reticent. Future contribution rates, of course, are still needed quite high because of the cost of the actual buying the pension as you buy it each year. But if the surpluses are because of previous deficits have now become surpluses, it's looking at that area jump.
Yeah.
Okay, but we'll keep you updated on that. It's tentative, and that's why the workshops and the groups are being set up to actually discuss it. And so that includes actuaries as well as the scheme advisory board, DLUC and employers. So there's everyone from each side on that and really looking at this topic.
Well, it's obviously early days.
Yes.
It'd be useful to talk about that in the employers meeting.
The actuary may mention that it's being looked at. So yeah. Thank you.
Can I just make a more general point? I mean,
Yep.
Clearly big changes in staffing within the pensions administration section. We've talked about staffing in the past. Can you just give us a quick update on what the general state of staffing is within the pensions?
Yep,
administration?
within the pensions team, my position, well, obviously was to be vacant. The replacement will take up a role on the 19th of December. So there'll be a 6-week period where Pete and Justin will be supporting my pensions administration team in the absence of a manager directly looking after them. So that won't be a big period of time. Justin was hot out of the stalls to get that advertised and interviewed for. So sorry, it's a big shout out for Justin too. He didn't let the grass grow on that one. So the team will be supported from late December. Across the rest of the team, we've just successfully appointed. You'll remember when Becky left earlier in the year. Alison Grange was successful in getting Rebecca's role. We've struggled to replace Alison, but literally within the last 3 weeks, Alison and I have successfully interviewed and offered the role to somebody. So at the moment, that's just going through all of the HR processes. So we haven't got a start date there. So we've got a successful appointment. So we have been carrying that vacancy for a while. We've had the vacancy. We had one employee leave from our systems team. We've had an internal movement and promotion into that one. And we have, that was a maternity cover where that person was currently working. So the person is coming back from maternity, but coming back part-time. And we think we've successfully got a candidate to offer that role to as well. So that one will be filled. And we've only got one other recent change, one of our members has got a promotion within the council. So that's a recent resignation we've had in the last month, and that job is going out for advert next week. So we are still short-staffed, but it's looking really positive for the recent appointments that we've had for the vacancies we have been carrying. So thank you for asking.
Thank you
It's
for your answer.
our work.
Very comprehensive and quite reassuring.
Recruitment is hard, John. It really is, but we're hoping that the few recent appointments will be good for the team. It will be better to get up to fully staffed again, and they have worked really, really hard. And we've obviously had to juggle certain things that we just have to reprioritise, but they have done very, very well to get through this.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not going to get any easier, is it?
No,
Well,
It's very difficult everywhere at the moment. I mean,
it is.
it's not just the council, it's everywhere.
It's looking. I would just like to add there, nationally in local government pension scheme being driven by the funds, and LGA have picked it up for us. They are looking at driving and introducing some new qualifications to try and get to aid us in retention and enrichment around roles, and also making it more nationally recognised as a proper profession. We do seem to be Cinderella sometimes, but it's a very complicated area, so it's recognising that. So thank you.
We just go back to the
Yeah.
employers 14th of November.
Yeah.
That's online, is it?
It is online, yes.
Are the committee board members going to, some of them going to join it? Tom,
We-
for example.
They all get invited, yes, and they I think Tom has joined in the past, so we all
Okay.
yeah.
Surplus is by SAB going to be interested, isn't it? Because, you know, you might be surplus today, but tomorrow you could be down again.
That's what.
So they're obviously going to have to set a limit, like 120% or 115% or 110% over, before they start looking at the surpluses back to employers.
It really
It's
is.
going to be a complicated
It is a complicated
equation.
topic, and it really needs thinking through because of that. It's how quickly things change.
Well, they do, we know that. One day you could be 202%, and next day with 92%. So
Yeah.
10% drop, you know, overnight. That's a lot.
That's it. And sorry, Chair, can I just add, the employers meeting online, we did, because we deliver online training and online meetings for employers quite regularly, we have also checked and done feedback from them as to whether they wished it to continue online or in person, and their feedback was that for the majority of them, it works better online. Because they can have either more people access the meeting and they lose less time getting it, and they fully so we do keep
that this morning.
well, we do keep an eye on that, because we are quite happy to arrange something should they want it, but the feedback for the employer's side of things is definitely at the moment that they're happy with online.
Yeah.
So but we will we do keep checking on that area.
And I've had a discussion with Justin about members. I know on the committee, they voted against having a members meeting like we used to, you know, in about 8 places around the area. So they voted against it. So that's the way it's going to stand. Okay, we're asked to note the contents of the report. We've all give our comments. Noted. Thank you. Going to item 6, cost transparency. CJ, you're going to give a verbal update.
I'm going to give you a verbal update, and by all means, you can ask for a more formal report going forwards if that's what you require. Yeah. So I think you attended the same meeting, Dave, didn't you?
I did.
I attended from the SAB
Yeah.
on cost transparency. I thought what I'll do is start with, I'll just set out what cost transparency is. So effectively, what cost transparency is, it's a scheme that the SAB have put into place, and it's a voluntary agreement for investment managers to provide all LGPS funds and pools with effectively cost information in a standardised format. So on the face of it, it's absolutely great because you're going to get all the information in one place. It's supported by a separate online system provided by Bahirus, which will give us access to that information. It's not new. It's been around since 2019. why are suddenly the SAB pushing it a bit more? Well, obviously it's grown over time. There's been a lot more manager take up. So now we're at a stage where effectively they've got 90% of assets which are within the local government pension scheme covered by managers. So they've got 159 managers signed up to the scheme at the moment. And they get a completion rate in terms of the actual templates of about 95%. Also, in terms of our investments, up until 2023, they've only been able to include the costs for level 1 and 2 investments. So basically that's things like equities and bonds. It's not included anything in terms of your private market stuff, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of private equity, or some of the more complicated investments like insurance-linked securities. Those level 3 investments haven't been included in the cost transparency template. So we've been getting the information anyway from the managers. So it's always been a case of, well, if we're getting it directly from the managers, actually only having half the information in a separate place didn't actually add any value to us. What they said is from April 23, effectively, what they're hoping is that level 3 investments will also be included within the template. So that makes it a lot more interesting to us in terms of giving us one data source where we can actually get the costs. It's not going to replace the fact that we're still going to get the costs directly from the managers anyway, but it does allow us to then use the data that they're providing to actually do comparisons. So we can take Shropshire as a small pension fund based on the definitions of assets under management. We can compare our costs then to other pension funds. Now, of course, there's always going to be discrepancies because a lot of it's going to depend upon what your investment strategy statement is and how you actually invest in those assets, because some assets are a lot more expensive to invest in than others. But it does give us a point of where we can actually start to look at whether we've got robust information that we can bring to the board, that we can bring to committee on costs rather than just on investments. Now, obviously in the past, our investment reports have very much concentrated on performance. And I think at the end of the day, net performance is still the key driver. I'd rather pay more and get good performance than pay less and get slightly less performance. So net performance is always going to be your key driver. But I think the actual ability to look at costs in more detail will be helpful going forwards. Now, one of the issues we've got is that SAB have put this system in place, the hirers support it, we can get access to it, but none of the data that's on there is actually validated. So one of the first things we need to do is make sure that when we run a report for Shropshire, how does that actually stand up against the actual invoices and things that we're getting from our investment managers? Does it actually look like it's actually an accurate picture? So we'd have to do a validation exercise first just to make sure that we're not running these reports, taking them as carte blanche and then making decisions based on them when actually it doesn't actually match what's happening in reality. So there is a bit of work to be done around that.
Where do they get their information from for the costs?
Each manager that signed up to the scheme, effectively what they've created is a template, a cost template, and every manager fills it in a consistent manner, in a consistent way. Now, but like I said, that's not validated, and therefore that's where the question comes in. Is actually then, obviously at the moment, when we're doing the accounts and things and putting the costs together for the accounts, then we're working specifically off either the manager's invoices or where the fees are deducted at source. We're working off the investment statements, so we can see all the charges anyway, and we bring them out. And external audit are quite happy that there's enough transparency in terms of what we're doing at the moment. The scheme from the SAB, effectively, it gives us another way of analysing costs. But of course, there is a fair bit of work that we need to do to make sure that it's accurate and reliable. And the other big problem we have with the scheme is, under the scheme, all managers have 90 days to submit the information within quarter end. So the year end, which is our most important part of, because that's when we need the information for the annual accounts, the managers have to submit the information to the scheme by the 30th of June. Unfortunately, our deadline for actually producing the draft accounts is the 31st of May. So
There's a bit of a gap there.
yeah, we have a slight issue in terms of timing. Ideally, though, if we can get to the stage where we can say the 9-month information on the system matches our 9-month information, then it gives us a better way of estimating what that final quarter will be. Because at the moment, we have to make an estimate for what that final quarter in terms of charges will be. So I think there are developments that will allow us to use the data better going forwards. But like I say, at this moment, we've not been using it up until, although like I say, it's been around since 2019, we've not been using it as a tool. We are now starting to consider how we can use it as a tool that's actually going to add value. Because what we don't want to do is duplicate the work that we've already done. But if we can streamline the work that we've already got on investments in terms of looking at costs, if we can make it easier to report data back to the board and committee in terms of costs, then that is something we will look at. But like I say, first of all, we want to take that step to go back and actually validate that that data is what we expect it to be. And if it isn't, then we can go back to the individual managers. All of our managers within our current portfolio are signed up to the scheme, so that's a good plus. We're not actually missing anybody off the thing. So there's certainly potential for this to be. It should improve efficiency if we can get it to actually work and if we can get confidence in the data that's actually there. But it is very much a case of having the time to actually take a step back and actually do that extra work at the moment before we can formally come forward. So that's why there's no formal reports at this stage. I know one of the things, Dave, you did raise was, is there an extra cost to this in terms of
for
the fund
managers
and this information? Essentially, at the moment, the cost is all covered within our levy to the SAB. So there's no transparent additional cost. The system itself isn't massively expensive now that it's been set up. The actual licensing costs to the SAB are, I think they said, about 70,000 per annum, which across, if you consider that all the funds and all the pooling companies can get access to that information, isn't a massive amount. Yeah. So, but happy to take any questions on it at this particular moment in time. And like I say, once we have actually had a chance to look at it in more detail and consider some of the reports, then I can bring back a report showing you the sort of example reports and sort of information we can pull off the system, if it would be of interest.
It was an interesting meeting in that SAB decided that the officers could continue with the demonstration while all the members had to leave. But why they did that?
It
We
made
don't
no
know,
sense to me as to why,
you know.
like say, members were not allowed to stay for the second part of the presentation.
Well, it sounds potentially extremely valuable. I mean, the investment industry is not famous for being transparent about its charges, by and large, and see lots of ways to sort of tuck them away somewhere where you don't see them. So, yeah.
And they pointed that out quite strongly on the meeting, to be honest with you. There are lots of ways they can hide their charges.
Yeah.
But this transparency, hopefully.
Very much fingers crossed that you focus out. I mean, we've not had the opportunity to do that exercise. I wouldn't want to bring any of that cost data straight from the system to either the board or the committee without having confidence that it was actually accurate. And also we've got to consider that a lot of these things now, as we move more to pooling, will become less of our control as well. So there'll be less managers where we actually have control over what fees are. That will be set by the pool when the pool actually starts that investment.
But hopefully the pool will give you the figures back.
That's it.
They should do.
They should do, yeah, and it should be part of.
And say you own 1/8 for these figures, you know, whatever it is.
That's right. But yeah, happy to take any further questions.
No more questions? No. Thank you for that. Really comprehensive, as I remembered. Go on to item 7 of the agenda. They're the pension committee reports. Hopefully you've had access to those reports through those 2 links which were sent out to you on the agenda itself. I think, John, you attended anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, and I attended. Are there any questions from the employer reps, I guess? Probably not, no.
Thank you.
There was,
Ask one question, but I'm not sure whether you'll have the answer. There was another discussion about having a public members meeting, which seems to come up fairly regularly. When's it due up again?
Right, I think that's the AGM you're talking about. So now, obviously, as Dave raised earlier, the committee voted 3-2, I think it was, against having a public meeting. It has been discontinued for a while now, I think,
COVID.
since
Yeah.
COVID. There are a number of reasons why the committee voted in that particular way. So
We
It was
just,
done in closed session, I think.
yeah, does it need to be done in, do you need to answer in closed session or?
no, I mean, we can answer the question on the AGM in open session in terms of, as long as it's minuted, that's fine. It's fine to be minuted. These are all, it was raised in the public part of the committee meeting. And it's a matter of public record. We've made the decision. It sits within our policies that we're not having a formal AGM. Obviously, as I say, it's been discontinued since COVID. Even pre-COVID, the number of people actually attending the AGM was dropping year on year. Also, since then, we've come up with an awful lot of different ways of working. I mean, as you've seen from Debbie's administration update, there's an awful lot of online stuff we now provide. We provide an awful lot of webinars. We provide an awful lot of advice that gives access to a lot more members and a lot more employers than a face-to-face AGM does. We've also developed the website quite a lot since members and employers with answers on a day-to-day basis. They don't need to wait once a year to actually raise something at an AGM. If there's an issue that they've got out there, then there's now functions in place that allow them to raise those questions in a timely manner, and those can be raised. Also, all the meetings that we now undertake in terms of both committee and board are all live streamed. So whereas prior to COVID, you could go and read the minutes and things, but now you can actually watch those meetings back if you've got any questions to raise. So there are a number of factors that have changed effectively since we last held an in-person AGM. And I suspect it will continue to be brought up at committee and it will continue to be discussed. But as I say, those are the arguments at the moment as to why there's not one. And that's the way the committee voted. It is something we will look at on a regular basis. I mean, as I say, I think it's been brought up at the last 3 committee meetings that I've been present at.
Yes.
And it is something that we're committed to looking at on an annual basis. I don't know if you've got anything further you want to add, Debbie.
We have this year literally also done webinars online for members, active members. And we did put out a question at those as to whether the members who joined, so we had a good uptake of people that came to learn about this was more about pension, so it was the direct learn about your pension a bit more. And we asked those people if they would work better in person. And again, there was, I don't think we'd had many at all who'd answered their feedback sessions that actually said that they would want them in person. So it's not the feedback that we're getting directly on from our membership on the team, especially for the administration side and benefits. They seem happy enough with the online. You can still book an appointment. We do face-to-face meetings through Teams now as well. But if somebody doesn't have that medium, we will arrange that we can meet them in the council's drop-in centre in town, and we have made face-to-face meetings available for people. So it truly isn't something that we are getting on the ground. We'd be happy to facilitate it, but it's also the issue because of COVID. People are still reticent to get together in big groups, and I would like to, you know, what Pete said, we were getting down to less than 100 people coming to, you know, even down to less than 50 coming to those annual meetings. We'd gone from 3 meetings across a day that we used to do across Shropshire, and we used to do one in the evening, down to 1 meeting, and we were only getting that number then. So, you know, the history was showing people were going away from wanting to turn up in person. So it's not a big push from us because we're trying to ensure every other medium is used. We do go out to employers still. So for active members, we still offer, and we do sessions directly with an employer on site. There was some at a school in North Shropshire that they opened it up to the schools in the area, and we went to those earlier in the year, did 2 sessions. So that's all put out to employers as well. So if the employers have enough membership and they have a room that can be used, we can do an education session. So those are still on offer.
Yeah, I did bring this up with Justin, and I mean, I had 5 members ask me if there was going to be meetings like we used to have before COVID. But when you got 54,000 members, and as Debbie said, you know, we were down to less than 100, down to 50 actually coming to the meetings. I think the committee is right in the decision to say no at this moment in time. Maybe in a couple of years' time, when everybody's getting back again, they might come back again. But currently, I mean, everybody's online these days. Most of the members are online. So that was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter, we don't even have to note that, do we? It's just information.
It might be, what I would say, Michelle, is probably worth noting it in the minutes, just the minute that the board's considered
Okay,
the approach.
Cost of transparency. Interesting. Any more on the pension committee reports? The public reports? No, thank you. Okay, we move on to item number 8, which is the date of the next meeting. It's Friday, the 26th of January, not Friday the 13th. Friday, the 26th of January at 10:00 hours. Hope you've all got it in your diaries. I'll plan my minutes now. Item number 9, the exclusion of the press and public. To resolve that in accordance with the provision of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, Section 5 of the Local Authorities Exercise Arrangements, Meeting and Access of Information, England, Regulations, and Paragraph 3 of the Council's Access to Information Rules, the public and press be excluded during consideration of the following items. Can we turn off the recording, please? Second,
Yes.
Ellen, thank you. All agreed? Thank you.